All right, let's dive right into this because there is a lot to unpack about the San Francisco 49ers after that rough game and the updates that came in the aftermath. When I first watched it live, I honestly thought things were not as bad as they ended up looking on the replay. But man, going back over the highlights, really watching every snap again, I came out of it feeling way less confident about Brock Purdy's performance than I initially did. During the game, maybe adrenaline blinds you a bit. Maybe you focus on the result more than the details. But on the rewatch, it was impossible to ignore how off-target so many of those throws were. Some balls were sailing high, some were short, some to the left, others to the right. It was just scattered, and that inconsistency has me wondering how much that toe injury really played a role in throwing him off rhythm. At first, I brushed it aside, but now I have no doubt it was more of a factor than it seemed in the moment. I'm not putting every single turnover on Purdy, but I am definitely holding more responsibility on his shoulders than I did the night of the game. Now, before I sound all doom and gloom, let me balance this out because it was not a completely lost effort. There's one thing that stood out as a real positive, and that is the fact that the Niners still managed to put some explosive plays together despite all the negative swings. That is not easy to do when you're handing the ball over 4 times, but somehow they still managed to outscore the Jaguars' offense and move the ball better overall. That right there tells me this team has resilience. Even when they're making life hard on themselves, they are not an easy group to beat. Jacksonville did not win that game cleanly. The Niners practically gifted it away with turnovers. And yet, despite all that, it was still a fight. You have to give credit for that because it speaks to the toughness of this roster. If they can clean up the giveaways, they're going to be incredibly hard to knock off. On top of that, there was some unexpected good fortune that came from the league office, and for once the schedule god smiled on the 49ers. Everyone remembers how brutal the start of the season was with 5 early morning kickoffs on the road, none of them at Levi's. New Orleans, Tampa Bay, Houston, New York, Cleveland, all of them far from home, and all of them in that dreaded early slot for a West Coast team. Anyone who has followed football long enough knows how brutal that time zone disadvantage can be. The body clock just does not line up, and the stats back it up. Teams traveling from the West simply do not perform as well in those early East Coast games. It has been that way for years. But now, the NFL flexed the next Niners game into the later window, that 1:25 Pacific start, which is massive. It gives them a fighting chance to be on more equal footing. You can downplay it if you want, but the truth is, moving that kickoff back a few hours is a real edge compared to where it was. Just look at what happened with the Chargers when they had to go east for that early game against the Giants. They faced a rookie quarterback, a team missing key pieces, and yet they still found a way to lose. It is not all about kickoff time, but it matters. The Niners will gladly take any advantage they can get, and this is one. For once, the NFL handed them a gift, and it could not come at a better moment considering the short week they're dealing with. But even with that bit of luck, there is no denying that the injury list is piling up and causing major headaches. Kyle Shanahan confirmed that Malik Mustafa might be back practicing after week 6, which is huge progress given his ACL rehab, but in the short term there are more immediate concerns. Ricky Parol's situation is tough. Early reports suggest a minor PCL issue, similar to what Christian McCaffrey managed through before, but you could just see it in Parol's body language after the game. He knew it was not right, and when a player feels that strongly an hour after walking off the field, it is hard to picture him suiting up on a short turnaround. Then you add in Jawan Jennings, who at first was convinced he would be fine, only to wake up sore and uncertain, and suddenly the wide receiver room looks thin. Kinder Bourne continues to frustrate with costly drops, and without extra help like MVS or Sky Moore, the passing attack gets that much more complicated. And that brings us back to Purdy. Shanahan mentioned that he woke up with that toe flaring up again, which makes Thursday feel like a stretch for him. If the quarterback is already dealing with accuracy issues and now has to manage pain on a short week, that is not a recipe for a bounce-back performance. The odds lean toward him sitting, but we will have to wait and see. Either way, it adds another layer of uncertainty to a team that is already searching for answers after a disappointing performance. Now, one area where the numbers did bring some encouragement was Pro Football Focus highlighting Fred Warner's dominance. He graded out as the best player on either side of the ball, and right now he is the top-graded defender in the entire league. That does not surprise anyone who actually watched him play. He was everywhere again, blowing up plays, forcing fumbles, coming inches away from more interceptions. Warner has not piled up the flashy takeaways yet, but his impact is obvious, and he is playing at a Defensive Player of the Year level. And when you think about facing Puka Nacua later this week, it is kind of fitting that both of the highest-graded players in football, both from BYU, will be squaring off on the same field. On the offensive line, the story is a bit mixed. Colton McKivitz has quietly been outstanding in pass protection. According to the data, he's the #1 graded pass-blocking right tackle in football, allowing only 6 pressures through 4 games. That is incredible when you think about all the concerns coming into the year about whether the Niners could trust him long-term. Extending him early looks like a smart move now. But then you look at the other side with Trent Williams, and the story gets complicated. Williams has been one of the best of his generation, a future Hall of Famer without question, but age might finally be catching up to him. He's had rough stretches, gave up 4 pressures against the Jaguars, and did not look like the same dominant force. The strange part is that even with that dip, he is still graded as a top 5 tackle in the league. That says less about him being perfect and more about how rare elite offensive line play really is. It is not like you can just go out and pluck a better left tackle off the street. As fans, we get frustrated, but the reality is these players are the best of the best, even when they are struggling. The bigger issue might actually be next to Williams. Rookie Connor Kebby, thrown into action, has had a tough time. He gave up 5 pressures again, which makes 10 in just 2 games. That is simply unsustainable, and whether it is lingering injury or just the learning curve of the NFL, it is something the Niners have to figure out fast. When your offensive line gives up 16 pressures in 1 game while your opponent only allows 5, the math is not on your side. And then we come to the defensive line, which might have had its worst outing in a decade. Only 5 pressures as a unit. That is staggering when you consider the talent on that line and how much they rely on it to control games. Without Nick Bosa, everything feels different. In weeks 1 through 3, they were putting up double-digit pressures, even managing 22 in back-to-back games. But take Bosa out of the equation, and suddenly they look flat, unable to disrupt the quarterback, and soft against the run. You can excuse one big ATN run skewing the numbers, but even if you do, the run defense was not sharp. Being bad against the run and failing to generate pass rush at the same time is a losing formula. You have to be good at one or the other, and the Niners were neither in that game. So when you step back, you see a team that is both battling injuries and struggling with execution in the trenches, and yet somehow they still nearly pulled it out. That speaks volumes about their talent and toughness, but it also raises real concerns about whether they can maintain that edge if things do not improve quickly. Purdy's accuracy, the health of the wide receivers, the defensive line's ability to pressure without Bosa, the offensive line holding up against serious competition, all of it is in question. All right, let's pick it up for where we left off because there is still a lot to cover with this team. One of the biggest takeaways after diving into the numbers again is how misleading turnovers can be when you do not break them down play by play. PFF actually graded both Brock Purdy and Trevor Lawrence with only 1 turnover-worthy throw each, which is wild when you think about how the game felt live. Watching it in real time, it seemed like Purdy was spiraling, handing possessions away left and right. But the grading system takes into account penalties, deflections, and context. Lawrence, for example, had that near disaster when Upton Stout almost picked him, but the flag wiped it off the stat sheet. The same thing goes for Purdy. So in the data, it does not look as catastrophic as it felt, but that just shows how perception and numbers sometimes clash. Fans watch the highs and lows, the momentum swings, and it feels like the quarterback is single-handedly giving the game away. Yet on paper, it was not as reckless as the vibe suggested. That being said, perception matters. Purdy's throws that sailed too high, too far outside, or that came in late timing-wise are the kind of things that stall drives and break rhythm, even if they do not go down officially as turnover-worthy. And you could see how it affected the offense's confidence. Timing is everything in Kyle Shanahan's system, And when the quarterback is even slightly off, the whole thing unravels. Wideouts start pressing, trying to make spectacular catches on routine plays. And that is when you see dropped balls, tipped passes, and missed opportunities. George Kittle and Brandon Ayuk have both bailed Purdy out with those leaping grabs before, but living on the edge like that is not sustainable. You can survive that way for a game or two, but across a full season it becomes a ticking time bomb. Now, looking beyond the quarterback play, the Niners' defense has to take a hard look in the mirror. Giving up only 5 pressures of the line is something we have not seen in 10 years. Think about that. A decade without this kind of no-show from what is usually the heart and soul of the roster. That is not just about one star being missing. It is about the collective energy not being there. Nick Bosa changes everything because even when he does not get home, he collapses pockets, draws double teams, and forces offenses to adjust their entire scheme. Without him, Jacksonville's line had it too easy. Trevor Lawrence had time to make clean throws, and when he needed to, he extended plays with minimal disruption. The ripple effect showed up in the secondary too. Corners like Darrell Luter Jr. and Deommodore Lenoir held their own for stretches, but without consistent pressure, eventually the coverage breaks down. It is inevitable in this league. It is also worth noting how much this game highlighted the fragility of depth. Everyone knows that when stars go down, role players have to step up. But not all positions are created equal. At wide receiver, you can rotate in bodies, scheme guys open, and sometimes scrape by if your quarterback is sharp. On the defensive line, though, it is a different beast. If your front four cannot generate disruption, your whole defense collapses because it is built around the assumption that the line will win its battles. San Francisco has invested heavily in that philosophy for years, and when it crumbles, you are left exposed. That is why even with Fred Warner playing out of his mind, it felt like the defense was constantly on the ropes. One of the most frustrating things as a fan is realizing how much is out of a team's control. You cannot control who gets hurt, you cannot control what time your games get scheduled, and you cannot control officiating calls. What you can control, though, is execution, and the execution has been shaky in key moments. Trent Williams, as we talked about, is still graded top 5 at his position, but you watch him and you can see the cracks. It does not mean he is finished, but it means he is human. And when you combine that with a rookie left guard who is bleeding pressures, suddenly your quarterback is jittery in the pocket. When your quarterback is jittery, throws sail high or come out rushed. It is a chain reaction, and the Niners are living through the ugly version of that right now. Even the running game, which usually provides stability, has not looked the same. Christian McCaffrey has battled through pain before, but without consistent line play, even his explosiveness gets neutralized. You can see defenses keying on him, forcing Purdy to make throws, and when Purdy struggles, the whole offense shrinks. It is like a tug of war where the defense is daring you to beat them over the top. And if you cannot, they load the box and suffocate everything else. That is the challenge Shanahan is facing, and it is why scheme alone cannot save them when the fundamentals break down. But before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to 49ers Zone and hit the like button on this video. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the San Francisco 49ers. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comments below. In a move that has sent shockwaves through the NFL world, star wide receiver CeeDee Lamb is rumored to be heading to the San Francisco 49ers. While nothing has been officially confirmed, insiders suggest that Lamb's potential arrival in the Bay Area could completely reshape the team's offensive strategy, turning the 49ers into an even more formidable force. Sources close to the situation hint that Lamb, widely regarded as one of the most dynamic playmakers of his generation, has been exploring opportunities that would allow him to fully showcase his versatility. The 49ers, known for their innovative offensive schemes under head coach Kyle Shanahan, are rumored to be the perfect fit. Lamb's combination of speed, precise route running, and clutch playmaking could open up the playbook in ways fans have only dreamed of. NFL insiders speculate that Lamb's presence would not only provide a marquee target for the 49ers quarterback, but could also force opposing defenses to rethink their coverage strategies. The The rumor mill is buzzing with talk that Shanahan may already be drawing up new formations and packages designed specifically to leverage Lamb's unique skill set. Imagine a mix of deep threat plays, gadget routes, and creative motion schemes. Suddenly, the 49ers' offense becomes a chessboard, with Lamb as the queen moving in unexpected directions. Social media has been ablaze with speculation, with fans eagerly imagining what Lamb could bring to Levi's Stadium. Could he transform the 49ers into immediate Super Bowl contenders? Will the offense become unrecognizable, built around a receiver capable of stretching the field and creating space for everyone else? While the front office remains tight-lipped, the mere suggestion of Lamb joining the squad has already injected a new level of excitement into the Bay Area. If this rumor proves true, the NFL landscape may be entering a new era. CeeDee Lamb to the 49ers isn't just a transaction. It's a potential revolution, a seismic shift in strategy that could redefine how the league thinks about passing attacks. Fans and analysts alike are watching closely, eager to see if this whispered move becomes reality. One thing is clear: if Lamb dons the red and gold, the 49ers playbook may never look the same again. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the San Francisco 49ers, make sure to subscribe to 49ers Zone and give this video a like. We always look forward to hearing your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.